not. Man, it's empty. Why is all of these empty? What the heck? Who would put a camera out here? It's just weird. You know, it's funny. If you're here, I might as well talk to you. Things aren't so great. I don't know where you are or how you're watching this, but if you can't tell, some bad things have happened. And we're not doing so great. I'm from a colony that's not too far back that way. Just running in here to try and find some supplies. This looks like an abandoned house, and there's no cars, no anything, but there was a garage. I thought I could find something. You know, it's funny. It kind of reminds me of this game that I used to play back before all this happened. You know, I think they might have it. Hold on. They do. A little bit of light in the darkness. Hey, I don't know if you can see this, but it's kind of funny. This is the game I was talking about. It's called Dead of Winter, which is kind of funny considering the situation we're in. But in this game, you play a group of survivors and you're in a colony and you have to overcome a crisis every turn. You have to feed everybody in the colony. You have to overcome a lot of different things. You have to fend off zombies because we're in a zombie apocalypse. And you have to work together in order to survive pretty much, which is exactly like what we're doing now. You know, I can remember teaching the game just like it was yesterday. Hey everybody, it's Rain with Initiative Tabletop, and today I'm happy to bring you yet another review. Today we're going to look at Dead of Winter, a Crossroads game. Now this is a game that's been getting a lot of hype across all the continent. It's been talked about all over the place, and it's from Plaid Hat. And I was lucky enough to pick up a copy, and I wanted to show you guys what I thought. Dead of Winter is, what I like to say about it is it's a survival game with zombies. It just happens to have zombies in it. I know a lot of people say, oh, it's a zombie game. That's not really what I think about it. And in Dead of Winter, you control a group of survivors who are together in a colony, and you're trying to survive against a really deadly winter, and there happens to be zombies that are trying to get into the colony. Now, you're going to need to work together, and you're going to need to try and stay alive throughout this winter. And every game is going to have a different objective, where every game is going to have a different objective where you're going to have to work together with your teammates to try and survive through the winter. Now, there's a chance that one of you could be a betrayer. And if that happens, well, the rest of you guys could be SOL, because each person, in addition to trying to complete the main objective, has their own secret objective that they need to complete in order to win. Now, this game plays from 2 to 5 players, about an hour to 2 hours, depending on how many players you have. And like I said, I'm happy to have finally gotten a copy of this game, and once I played it, I just was thrilled with it. But before we get to my thoughts, let's take a look at how the game plays out. Alright, so here you have a quick setup of Dead of Winter for a 2-player game. Now this game is 2 to 5, but we're just going to have a 2-player game set up to show you how everything works. So like I said, in Dead of Winter, you play a group of survivors who is trying to survive in a colony against the winter, the elements, and these dreadful zombies that are wandering about. So the way this works is each game you have a main objective. Now the main objective is going to be different for each game. You can shuffle it, deal it at random, but for the purpose of this one, and this is just the default main objective, it's we need more samples. Now on the main objective, it will tell you how to set up the game. For instance, you have a round track and a morale track. And this tells you where both of those tracks start at. It tells you the victory, and it tells you a general length of time on how the game is going to work out. Think of morale as kind of your life. Once the morale gets down to 0, you're going to lose the game because everybody's sad, nobody's happy, and everybody kills themselves. If the round marker also gets down to 0, then you've run out of rounds, but you still have a chance to win as long as you satisfy the main objective. For the default main objective, every time you kill a zombie, you roll a die, a 6-sided die, one of these, And if you get a 4, 5, or 6, you get a zombie token. And you need 3 zombie tokens for every player in the game. So for this game, we would need 6. So the way this works is you're going to play a number of rounds dictated by the main objective. And in a round, it consists of player turns. The way this works is each round starts with the player turns phase and then goes to the colony phase. So let's take a look at how that works. First of all, during the setup of the game, you're going to get 2 survivors. You're going to get 4 survivors dealt from this survivor deck, and you're going to choose 2 of them and put 2 of them away. So let's just take a look at a survivor card before we get into this. The survivor card is going to have a lot of different information on it. It's going to have a really awesome art piece of the character, their name, basically their title, what they do. The top number circled is going to be their influence in the colony. The higher the influence, the more respected and more sought after that person is. The next number is going to be their attack, and the final number is going to be their search. And what these mean is whenever you want to do an attack, you have to spend a die from your unused die pool that matches or exceeds that number in order to do that thing. It's really simple. At the bottom of each card, they're going to have an ability. And some of them will have a location-specific ability, whereas others will have, it can happen anywhere. Some of them will say you have to spend an action die to do it, so on and so forth. But you're going to get 4 of these and choose from 2 of them. The player with the survivor that has the highest influence will go first. In this case, that's me. I have Thomas Hart. He is a soldier, so obviously he's going to have a lot of influence. Now, like I said in the beginning, also, along with this main objective, you're going to have a secret objective. Each player is going to have a secret objective. Now, for instance, my secret objective is Protector. It says I win the game as long as the main objective has been completed and I have at least 2 weapon cards equipped to survivors that I control. Now, this is a normal secret objective. This means I will win along with everyone else as long as I help out. But there is a chance that you could have a betrayal objective. For instance, this one is Mad Scientist. It says you win the game if morale is at 0, you have at least 2 survivors in your following, you have at least 2 medicine cards and 2 tools cards in your hand. The starter items don't count. So usually the betrayer objectives mean that morale has to be at 0, nobody else wins, and usually when it comes to betrayal, it's usually going to be the betrayer wins or everybody but the betrayer wins. Because when you set up the game, you shuffle 2 standard objectives per player and 1 betrayal objective. So for instance, the objectives pool for this game would be 4 standard secret objectives and 1 betrayal objective shuffled together and then dealt 1 to each player. So you're never going to have more than 1 betrayer. Now let's get back to how the game plays out. During the player turns phase, you always reveal the crisis. It's kind of like things are happening, the weather's bad, or zombies are moving in. You're going to have a crisis on every turn. Now the crisis is going to force you to work together. For instance, this crisis says killer instinct. This means we would need to have food and or medicine equal to the number of non-exiled players. I'll get to that in a moment. So by the end of the colony phase, when we resolve the crisis, we have to have food or medicine equal to the number of non-exiled players. If we do, nothing happens. If we fail this crisis, we have to add 3 zombies to the hospital and 3 zombies to the gas station. So the way that these crisis cards work is usually, hey, let's just resolve the crisis and work together so that nothing bad happens. And sometimes, like with this one, if you over-resolve the crisis, you can actually raise your morale. Because I will tell you, survivors are going to die. It's going to happen. And whenever a survivor dies, you lower your morale by 1. And that's bad. If the morale gets to 0, you lose. So the chance to up the morale is always good. So after we reveal the crisis for the turn, you roll your action dice. Now almost everything that you do in Dead of Winter requires you to spend an action die. And what's really cool is you get 1 per player plus 1 for every survivor you control. So as you gain more survivors, because it's possible through the game, you're going to add more dice to your pool. Everybody's going to roll their dice at once. Well, that's a pretty good roll. And then you're just going to place them in your unused action dice pool. Once you roll your action dice, you start taking turns. Players will take actions, starting with the player that has the first player token, this sweet knife. On your turn, here's some things that you can do. You can move a survivor. They can go from the colony to any one of these locations, and the reason why they're going to travel to these locations is because they're going to scavenge for items. You have the police station, the grocery store, the school, the library, the hospital, and the gas station. Each one of these locations is going to have a certain amount of items that you're going to find. For instance, and this is probably going to be common sense to you, the police station is going to have a lot of weapons. The grocery store is going to have a lot of food. The school and library are going to have books and tools, whereas the hospital is going to have medicine, and the gas station is going to have a lot of tools, some weapons, some food, a little bit of everything. So you can move your survivors without spending any of your action dice. You just say you want to move them, place them where you want to move them, and you roll the dreaded exposure die. The exposure die is the bane of my existence in this game. Whenever you move and whenever you attack a zombie, you will roll this die. It's going to have a lot of different results. This is the result you want. It means nothing happens. This result means you take a frostbite wound. It's cold, you didn't bundle up, now you're suffering for it. This is a wound, which means either you hurt yourself, you cut yourself, maybe the zombie pushed you, maybe you got hurt somehow, you take a wound. Now each survivor can take a combination of 3 wounds. Once they take their 3rd wound, they die. But if you're unlucky, like me, and you happen to roll the bitten symbol, the survivor instantly dies. And if its result is from an attack or moving and another survivor is here, the bite will spread. And it could kill more survivors. I've seen it happen, and it's nasty. Once you roll the exposure die, you're done. You can move, you can do other things as well. You can also attack zombies. If there's a zombie present, you spend a die equal to or higher than the survivor's attack value, like I noticed. We're looking at Sophie Robinson. Her attack value is 4+. I have both a 6 and a 4, which means if I wanted to attack with her, I could spend either one of these and attack. When you attack a zombie or another survivor, you instantly hit them. There's no defense die, there's nothing like that. If you hit a zombie, you instantly kill them. If you hit a survivor, you instantly hit them. But after you attack, you have to roll this exposure die again. Now there are some cards and some abilities on survivors that'll say when you move, don't roll the exposure die. When you attack, don't roll the exposure die. And that's really awesome. But that's kind of how attacks work. You can also search the same way as an attack, but only you're looking at their search value instead of the attack value. For hers, it's 1+, which means pretty much any die I use, she can search. When you search, you can look at the top card of the deck at the location that you're at, and you can choose whether you want to put this card in your hand or you can make noise. If you make noise, you add a noise token to the location that you're at, and you can look at an additional card. Now this doesn't mean you can take an additional card, but you can look at one. So now I would have one of these two to choose from. Let's say I needed the food. I'm going to take this into my hand. This is going to go at the bottom of the search deck. Making noise is kind of like you're rummaging around, you're looking for more things, you have the opportunity to find something you need, but you're making noise, which is going to attract zombies, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. On your turn, you can also barricade. You can spend a die of any number to place a barricade at the location that you're at. Barricades will stop zombies. At any point, if you're supposed to put a zombie there and there's a barricade there, then it will destroy the barricade and the zombie won't get placed. But that's only if there's no other available spaces to put zombies. So barricades slow them down. You can also clean waste. It's really important. As you play cards from your hand, which I'll go over in a moment, when you play cards from your hand, they go to the waste pile. If there's too much waste in the colony, people get sad. You've got to clean your own mess. Clean as you go. That is how this works. You can spend a die of any face, and you can clean 3 cards from the waste pile. When you do this, it cuts down on the waste, and it's important. I'll get to that in a little bit. For whatever reason, if you need to kill zombies and there aren't enough, you can spend a die of any phase to attract 2 zombies to whatever location you're at, whether it be the colony or a location out here. Other things that you can do on your turn that don't require spending a die is move, like I explained earlier. You can play a card from your hand for its ability. For instance, the food says put it in the waste pile and add 1 food token to the colony's food supply. Food is always good. Then this card would just go to the waste pile and stay here. You can add a card to the crisis. Let's say, for instance, man, I know that we have to pass this crisis, so as an action on my turn, for free, I can just go, I'm contributing to the crisis, and you always play your cards face down because of the fact that one of you could be a betrayer. And if you play any cards into the crisis that don't equal what it tells you to put in, they subtract from everything you've put in it. So for instance, if I put in 3 cards, 2 of them were food, 1 of them was a tool, and my fellow player put in a food, then we would have 3 food and 1 tool, which means the 1 tool would subtract from the 3 food and we would only have 2 food. Now for this case we would pass because we only need 2 food because it's equal to the number of non-exiled players. But that's how adding to the crisis works. Now let's say that your dice just aren't cutting it for you. You can spend a food from the food supply to make one of the dice show 1 higher face. For instance, I can make it go from a 2 to a 3, from a 3 to a 4, and so on, for every food token I spend. You can request an item. For instance, if you need medicine, you can say, hey, I need some medicine, and somebody can give it to you. You can hand off an item. Let's say that Miss Robinson is equipped with a rifle that Mr. James over here needs. I can go to his location, and as a free action I can hand him that rifle and he can equip it. And finally, you can vote to exile. This is important. If you think that one of the players is a betrayer, you can vote to exile that player out of the colony. If they get exiled out of the colony, their special objective goes away and they draw 1 from the exiled pile. Now these exiled objectives are a little different. The way they work is it'll say if you were the betrayer, then this is what you have to do to win, and if you weren't the betrayer, this is what you need to do to win. Sometimes it works out like if you aren't the betrayer, then you need to get revenge because those people suck and they kicked you out. If you are the betrayer, well, they were on to you. Keep trying to screw them over anyway. Once all of the players have taken their turns, you go to the colony phase. Now this is where things can get really out of control. During the colony phase, you have to pay food equal to the number of people that you have in the colony. The people who are out here, they're taking care of themselves. You don't need to feed them. For every 2 survivors in the colony, you have to pay 1 food. So if these 3 were in here, we would have to pay 2 food. It's always rounded up. So we would, let's just say we had it. So we would pay 2 food to the bank, everybody's fed, everybody's okay. If you can't feed them, you don't remove any food from the supply, and you instead add what is called a starvation token. And then you reduce morale by 1 for every starvation token in the food supply. So not feeding people, it makes them sad. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? After you feed people, you check the waste. If there's ever 10 cards in the waste pile, you lose 1 morale. That's why you got to keep cleaning up after yourselves. I've already told you this. All right. After you check waste, you have to resolve the crisis. So we would take these cards, we would shuffle them, and then reveal them. We would have 1 food and 1 medicine. These get removed from the game. The crisis is resolved, so we don't have any ill effects, and then the crisis gets removed from the game. If not, if you don't resolve the crisis, then you will just take whatever ill effects it says on the card. It's really straightforward. You then add zombies, kind of similar to the way that we do food. For every 2 survivors in the colony, you add a zombie, and they're always added in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And for every 1 survivor at a location out here, you add a zombie. So this can get really crazy really fast. If you ever have to add a zombie, and you can't, and there's a survivor at the location, 1 survivor dies. The survivor with the lowest influence will die. But if you have barricades, the barricades are destroyed instead. After you add zombies, you check the main objective, see if the main objective is satisfied. If it is, you win the game instantly. Even if you don't complete your secret objective, the game is over at this point because the main objective has been fulfilled. Then you move the round tracker down 1, you pass the first player token to the player on your left, and you start all over again with the player turns phase. And this will keep happening until the round marker gets to 0, you lose morale, or you finish the main objective. So I know that was a little long-winded, but that was a little bit about Dead of Winter and how it plays out. I'm really excited about the game. It definitely deserves all the hype that it's been getting. I really enjoy the teamwork aspect of it. We've played numerous games, and we've only had one where somebody was the betrayer, and it was me, and I was the only one that won, and it was crazy because every game I'd been playing up to that point, we were all working together. And I think that my betrayal objective was like, I needed to have one of every type of item card in my hand, and then basically I was like, bye, I'm leaving, and everybody else, I left them to die and just went on my merry own way. But this game is really awesome. It does encourage teamwork. I've played it from 2 all the way up to 5. I think it works really well as a 2-player game. It's nice and short. And it also works really well as a 4-player game. 5 players, it can kind of get a little wonky and take a lot of time, but it is a whole lot of fun. I feel like you could replace zombies and almost add anything else. You could add ninja kittens, you could add robots, you could add mad cows, you could add other people, and it would still play the same way. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the other Crossroads games entail. There was something during the showing you how to play that I did miss, and I want to mention that now. Every time you start your turn, the player to your right draws a Crossroads card and sees what might happen during your turn. Now, these Crossroads cards can be anything from, if you control a player at the colony, then this happens. If you control a player at the colony and you move, this happens. If you control this certain player, or this certain survivor, if you control this survivor and they go here. It got so specific one time that I had the fireman and I moved him to a certain location, and one of these Crossroads cards said if you control the fireman and he moves to this location, on his way to the location he goes home, finds out that his parents are dead, what does he do, you know, and I had to make these decisions, and I ended up killing my father because he was a zombie, and then taking his revolver, so I ended up getting a weapon. But, I mean, it's crazy, these decisions that you have to make. Some of them require you to do thumbs up or thumbs down. Others require just a straight decision. I absolutely love Dead of Winter. So if I was giving this a 0 through 10, this definitely gets a 10 for me. It stays on my shelf, but it doesn't stay on there very long. I play this every game night. I always encourage other people to play it, and if you haven't yet, check it out. Even if you're a person who feels like there's too many zombie games right now, this is worth it. And who knows, it might train you for if something like this ever happens. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the game, and thanks for checking out the video. But you know what, that's the end of that. Dead of Winter was a really great game. In fact, it became one of my favorite board games of the time back before all this happened. I was always ready to play it. I think it had a great theme. A lot of people want to say that, oh, it's just another zombie game, but I don't believe that at all. I feel like Dead of Winter is a survival game with zombies in it. I'm a sucker for survival games. I really like this a whole lot, and it was a game that you could almost not find anywhere, but they finally got more prints of it, and I got my hands on one. I was really glad. And if you're the type of guy who, or type of girl, or type of person, or type of zombie for whatever, if you like survival games and you like co-op games, this is great. And it was just nuts. You had to make sure you managed your resources, and you had to learn to work together in teams. And you know what? I bet the people back at the safe house might like this. You know, it might even be a good idea to take this back and teach some of the younger guys. I'm gonna do just that. Whenever you find this video, look over to the east and keep your eyes out. You might see some of our flares or our lights. And if you do, come out. We don't have much, but until next time, stay safe.